Hey everyone, Carrie Beck here with Homeschool Coffee Break, where we help you stop the overwhelm so you can actually take a coffee break as a homeschool mom. Today, I am here with Bonnie Rose, and y'all are in for a treat. This is something I loved. I was a public school teacher for 6 years. We did this I think every year because I did social studies for 6 years, and we did this with our kids. We're going to be talking about Christmas around the world. So, Bonnie, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I love this topic. I get excited about it every year. I just I just love learning the different ways that people celebrate Christmas all over the place.
That is so exciting. And if y'all are listening to me, you probably heard me say, stop your regular homeschooling and tie everything in to Christmas. Well, Christmas around the world is one of the easiest ways to tie in history or science or art or writing. There are just so many ways. So I would like to start with Christmas traditions that are around the world. What would you say, Bonnie, are some of the easy ways that families could incorporate some of the traditions that go around the world?
I think really probably the easiest way is by trying new recipes, just baking and cooking, because everybody, no matter where you're celebrating Christmas, everybody eats. So there are all kinds of recipes, main dishes, side dishes. Some of those can be pretty elaborate or require some different ingredients that maybe you don't have on hand. But one of the easy ways is just a breakfast. Plus, that way you can kind of work it into your Christmas week traditions without actually changing up your actual Christmas day, depending on how set you like your traditions on Christmas Day. So there's fun breakfasts, like you can make Argentinian pancakes, and they're like thin pancakes served with caramelized sweetened condensed milk, or things like fruit and whipped cream. Or you could try Brazilian style French toast. It's a kind of French toast with custard like filling. Another idea that maybe sounds a little bit more exotic is a Filipino baked rice cake that's often eaten for breakfast or as a snack. Or you could make Johnny cakes that are popular in Jamaica. And of course, there are Christmas cookies all over the world. I'm just floored and flabbergasted by how many different kinds of Christmas cookies there are out there that you can make. You could put together an entire Christmas learning experience just by making and trying kinds of Christmas cookies from around the world. There are Dutch Christmas wreath cookies that can be eaten or used as decorations. There's gingerbread biscuits in Sweden. There's thin, spicy cookies that are popular in the Netherlands. Those are traditionally made with special molds, but you don't have to use the molds. You can make your own using your favorite cookie cutter. But bonus points if you have a cookie cutter shaped like a windmill. That makes it more traditional. In Norway, it's a tradition to make 7 different kinds of Christmas cookies. In Croatia, there's cookies made with sweet honey dough, often in the shape of a heart, and that's a really fascinating tradition to dive into. It reaches back hundreds of years, and they're often used as decorations. Desserts are a big thing and one that I love to try. Um, I've been surprised to see how important dessert is in the traditions of many different countries. France has a tradition of serving 13 different desserts for Christmas. They represent Jesus and the 12 apostles at the Last Supper. And they aren't all super sugary desserts either. They include things like fruits and nuts and things like that. Germany has a fun kind of dessert called potato candy. In Canada, you can eat a jam-filled sponge cake that's shaped like a Yule log and covered with chocolate icing. Pavlova is a meringue dessert popular in Australia and New Zealand. It was named after the famous Russian ballerina Anna Pavlova. You could make malva pudding. It's a sweet apricot flavored dessert popular in South Africa. You can make trifle. It's an English dessert made with fruit and sponge cake and custard. You can make sweet potato pone. It's popular in Jamaica. There's a really fun Croatian treat that's fun to eat that are called Russian hats. And they are made to look like Russian fur hats. And they're made with sponge cake and custard and coconut and chocolate. There's various sweetbreads that are served all around the world that you can make and try. And adding a new recipe to your Christmas prep is just a really fun and easy way to learn about Christmas around the world. You can read a little bit about the country and then dive in and eat them. And then if you share your treats with someone, you can tell them what you've learned too. So it's a great experience for the whole family.
I just love that. If I brought food out during homeschooling, my kids were like paying attention. They're like, Oh, we get food for homeschool today. The other thing I wanted to say, like you shared so many great ideas, but moms, you don't have to do all of them. Like this year, pick maybe two, three, or four and do them this
Absolutely.
year. And then next year, you can constantly be learning about all different countries every year. It's not like you need to do it all in one year, which I
No.
think we get that checklist and we just got to get it all done.
Yeah.
So,
And it to make it easy too, I actually, which I know you'll mention later, but I have links to all the recipes that we talked about and anything else that we talk about today. I have links for all of that on my site, so you don't have to go digging around the internet for an hour trying to find a recipe, and then of course finding 12 other ones that look good at the same time. You can just hop on there and grab that if there's one that sticks out to you that sounds like something your family would enjoy.
that is awesome. Well, and then the other thing you mentioned at France, and I may have gotten it a little wrong. You said there are 13 desserts,
Mhm.
12 plus one, I mean, the 13 apostles. And to me, in my head, it doesn't equate to the 12 days of Christmas, but there is something about the number 12. And I'm thinking you could look at the 12 days of Christmas and the meanings, but you could also if you want the 12 days of you could do a different dessert like France does as well. So that would be
Mhm.
something fun.
The 12
So,
Days of Christmas, it's funny that you mentioned that. I was reading, well, I mean, everybody knows the 12 Days of Christmas has a lot of traditions behind it itself. There's actually a New Zealand tradition called 12 Days of a Kiwi Christmas. And it is fascinating to look at. Instead of a partridge in a pear tree, they have a native bird and a native tree, and then it goes from there. And it is a fascinating look at New Zealand culture and plants and animals. And so that's always something too, if you want to mix up a little bit for the 12 Days of Christmas. You can look up the 12 Days of a Kiwi Christmas and have some fun with that too.
wow, learn something every single day. That's pretty awesome. So if families, okay, we've got the recipes, we've got the cooking, the food things. Are there any other things that you would recommend for families if they wanted to incorporate other Christmas traditions from around the world?
Oh, sure. Crafts are simple, and there's a lot of them out there that don't have to be elaborate or require a lot of special materials. You don't have to spend $100 at Joann Fabrics or Hobby Lobby in order to pull these off. For example, you could make Chinese paper lanterns. You've probably seen them. They're traditional at New Year's, but they're also traditional at Christmas time. Now, Christians in China have to be extremely careful. It's frowned upon tremendously, and Christians face a lot of persecution there. But there are many traditions in China, as long as they're not related to Jesus Christ, that are common in different parts of the country. So they kind of celebrate some of the secular part without celebrating the religious part. And of course, Christians can attempt to celebrate privately at home. You could make a Christingle from England. It's a fun little craft, and all you need is an orange and a red ribbon and toothpicks and some sweets or dried fruit and a candle. And when you put it together, the orange represents the world, and the red ribbon symbolizes Jesus's blood. And the toothpicks with sweets or dried fruit represent all of God's creations. You stick them down into the orange. And then the candle represents Jesus's light in the world that brings hope to people living in darkness all over. So that's a really fun, simple craft that you can make. There's German crafts like straw stars or paper Moravian stars. You could make Las Posadas crafts to celebrate Christmas Mexican style. One of the Christmas crafts I love is the paper parole, and it's a symbol of Christmas in the Philippines. And it's a star-shaped decoration that is used to help everyone remember the Star of Bethlehem. And traditionally, they're lit like with candles. Of course, I'd recommend battery candles for everybody's safety. But they're beautiful. You can make them with different types of thin paper. There's Swedish heart baskets you can make. There's special horse themed crafts in Sweden if you have a horse lover in your home. I would suggest choosing a craft or a country that sounds interesting and just diving in. Like I said, there's links to all the ones that we mentioned on the site, but um, and as you said before, don't try to do all of them. Pick a couple and just have fun with it. Nobody needs to add 100 more things to their Christmas prep because it's hectic enough and it can be challenging as it is to keep the focus where it belongs at Christmas time.
That's so good. I mean, just think about it. You could do, we've got 3 or 4 weeks. I can't count very well, even though I'm 65 years old, but let's just say you have 4 weeks between now and Christmas. One time a week you do a recipe and one time you week you do a craft and they could be on the same country. So that means you could study 4 countries this year. Next year you can pick 4 more and make it simple. Don't stress yourself out. A few
Exactly.
things, as you said this, like Christians are persecuted in China. They can't be in public. But if they're making these Chinese lanterns, lanterns are for light, and
Yep.
Jesus is the light of the world. So you can share it privately. And then hopefully, if you were someone in China, that you
Hmm.
could go in and talk to people. I mean, there's some risk there, but you could share Jesus as the light of the world, but relate it to
Hmm.
their culture, just like people did 1,500 years ago. And then
Right.
one more, the orange. Okay, I know you're saying fruit and lanterns. My mind went to when I was teaching school, they would bring an orange and I had bags of cloves and they would
Uh-huh.
poke the cloves all through the orange. And I'm sure, I don't know if that's
Yes.
England or if that's somewhere else, or maybe I just made it up. But I'm gonna tell you one thing, it smelled great because you had the orange coming through the little holes and then the clove anyway. That would be another way to decorate an orange.
I remember I did read about that. And like you said, now that I'm trying to think about it on the spot, I can't remember for certain if it was England. I know it was a European country, and they do. They look like they would just smell out of this world with the orange and cloves together. They do. And would be so simple to make.
It really would be. And then it just lasts. Anyway, I was
Hmm.
like, but yeah. Okay, so we've got food, we've got crafts. Let's move to some of the things that we see with our eyes in the USA, but in other places as well. Two things I think of are the nativity and
Hmm.
Christmas trees. So, is the nativity and the Christmas tree popular around the world? What would you say about that? And is that something we should be teaching our kids as well?
I think well, nativities are treasured by Christians in many countries around the world. I've read about in countries where families might be very, very poor and they don't have the Christmas decorations, in this country, we tend to go rather big with well, with everything, but with
Unfortunately,
Christmas
yeah.
decorations, yeah. You drive down the street and there's, 6 different lit figurines in somebody's yard, and hey, I love it. I love seeing it, and I love decorating. I'm about as anti-minimalist as you can get when it comes to Christmas, as far as, the decorations aren't expensive, but man, there's light and glitter in every corner of my house that I can get it into. Um, so but if a family has nothing else for Christmas, they'll have a nativity scene. And I think it's really precious to remember that and to keep our focus there. There's so many different ways of having a nativity scene. In the United States, we tend to think of kind of the Italian version that came over. I think, but in France and in Mexico, it's common to add figurines of villagers to the nativity scene, and that's something you can do at home. You've got your little block people and your little dolls and anything you want. You could add small toy figures of people doing various jobs to your scene. Make it a setting. It doesn't have to be historically accurate. If you have villagers that look like they might have been at the nativity, that's great. But it doesn't have to be. You can have a plumber, it doesn't matter. If you've got a little guy with a wrench, that's all right. You can have a mechanic there. Just think community helpers, and just add people to your nativity scene. It's also common to add animal figures that represent the country that you live in. For example, in Brazil, you might add a jaguar or a parrot or even a rooster to your scene. In Argentina, you could add an alpaca. And in Peru, you could add like an alpaca or a llama. In India and in Peru, it's common to add elements like rocks and sand and plants or grass to your nativity scene. In Turkey, a nativity scene might use a Turkish rug for a setting instead of a cave or a stable. And so, what you could do at home is to have a small nativity scene that your kids can interact with. So, maybe not the treasured family set, depending on how you have all that set up. And so, have a set that they can work with hands on and have them add figures, maybe artificial plants, anything that they think of that they can use to tell the story from another perspective. You can encourage them to learn about various other countries in order to decide what figures or animals to add, or even what kind of artificial plants they might add. Artificial plants are a little bit harder to come by, but if you don't have something on hand, they can make a figure or a plant out of Play-Doh or clay. They can draw a setting or a background and prop it up behind the nativity set, anything like that, in order to add another element. Just kind of challenge them to pick a country or to pick a scene and think through what they're adding to the nativity. So they're not just adding toys to it, but they're adding things with a purpose. Christmas trees aren't really as common as we probably think they
Or
are.
I'm gonna
Uh,
stop you for a second. Let's talk about
sure.
nativities for a second. She said something really important, and I don't know if y'all caught this. You need to have nativity figures that are kid friendly. Like if they drop it, it won't break. If they drop it, we are not ruining grandma's nativity scene that's been
Right.
passed on for generations. And I have to tell you, I was blessed. My mother actually made a stuffed nativity scene, like she
Oh,
sewed it all together. My kids would do it. Then I think she gave them these little plastic things. I wish I had it to show y'all because they had holes. And so they were sort of like bugle chips that you put on your finger, and they'd have all three wise men on their fingers and stuff.
oh,
Now, that's just what we personally had. And we'd have other things. My granddaughter, both of our grandkids, all of our grandkids have Fisher Price. And I'm telling you, when she was 7 years old, she had that whole scene on the floor, and she's like, "Y'all come over here." I mean, she kept saying, "Come, come, come." And she told us the whole nativity story, things I was like,
yep,
where did she learn? And where did she learn about Anna and Simeon? So you just never know.
yep,
All I'm saying is get something your kids can use with their hands, and y'all aren't going to be afraid that it may
right.
break. And in case you didn't hear it, I am just reinforcing that. Sorry, I'll be quiet. We can move on. So, Bonnie.
No, no, that's absolutely true because I still get nervous every year setting up the family nativity. I think please don't let me be the one to drop it because it's been in the family for decades. And but you definitely don't want to be, adding to and playing with that because it just adds stress. And nobody needs added stress anytime, least of all at Christmas time. So just have one that they can
No.
interact with, and if they're older, then if they're too old for things like Fisher Price, just pick up a low cost one like at Walmart or something like that, something that they
Yes.
can work with so that they can handle it and make a setting, even if they're preteens. Well, sure, they don't need Fisher Price, but they may not want to be adding Lego people to the family nativity set either. So, just make it work for your family. It doesn't have to be any one particular way.
True. Okay, I interrupted you before you went to Christmas trees, so let's talk about that a
Sure.
little bit.
Christmas trees aren't really as common as we probably think they are. One fun thing that I found is how people often use trees other than pine trees, especially think south of the equator. So evergreen trees are just kind of a perpetual symbol of Christmas, but they don't grow everywhere, obviously. So in Kenya, for example, some families decorate cypress trees. In Ghana, churches bring palm branches into the church and decorate them. Some families in Ghana decorate mango or guava trees outside their home, but it's more common outside than inside. In India, some families decorate banana trees or mango trees. In Madagascar, you could use a palm tree or what may be the most unique tree in the world, a monkey puzzle tree, which is just a lot of fun.
Wow.
It's a crazy looking little tree, but it's really cute. So you probably don't have fake monkey puzzle trees sitting around. So in order to incorporate that, what you can do is you can have your kids draw a picture of a tree, like a cypress tree or
Mm.
monkey puzzle tree or banana, mango, guava, whatever they want. And then just draw decorations on it. And you can display the pictures with your decorations. And that's just an easy way to add Christmas trees from around the world into your display without actually having to have something like that available. Another fun way to learn about Christmas in other countries is to celebrate a day that's part of the Christmas season in another country, like Las Posadas in Mexico, St. Lucia's Day, Boxing Day, Epiphany, or Little Christmas Eve, which in Norway is December 23rd. They all have their different traditions with those days, and it helps provide a way that you can celebrate Christmas without adding a lot of changes to your actual Christmas Day routine. I know some families are very fluid with how they celebrate Christmas each year. Other ones have a certain order that everything goes in every year, and that order is part of the celebration. So if that's you and you're thinking, well, I don't want to change things up on Christmas Day, you don't have to. You can celebrate a day that comes before or after Christmas in another fashion and do that. Or if you're traveling on Christmas Day, you might not even be home on Christmas Day. So, there's lots of ways to make it work that you can add the learning and other traditions into it without actually changing your family's traditions. Or you might find a tradition that you just love and it becomes part of your family for the rest of your lives. I mean, it can go either way. It really is just like everything about homeschooling, it's totally customizable. You can do whatever works for your family.
Yeah, and it may change from year to year. When
Yep.
you were mentioning that, it reminded me, my daughter, my middle daughter, when she was about 6 or 7, read the Kristen American Girl books, and
Yes.
she celebrated St. Lucia's Day,
Yes.
and she was enthralled with that. So I made her this little white dress. We got a red
Yeah.
cord for her belt, and I don't know how many years she and I would make these rolls the night before because I was
Yes.
too lazy to get up the morning of and let them rise. And she was the only one. We still have a picture of her carrying them in with this wreath and candles and
Yes.
carrying them in because her brother and sister were still in bed. And so
Aw.
she was serving her siblings. And that's sort of the idea. St. Lucia,
Yeah.
if y'all don't know, is a saint of light. And you could go in, there's so much you can learn about just
Yes.
one like each year, just learn about one person. But um, it was, she wanted to do it. And again, if your kids are interested, dive into it and go for it and
Yes.
learn about it. And seriously, I don't know how many years she made those little roll curl things with raisins, although we
Mhm.
sort of cheated. We didn't put raisins because my kids weren't into raisins. We put a little chocolate chip where the raisins
That's
were.
great.
And but yeah,
Yep.
there's so many things like that, and they're not on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. So that is a great idea.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I know that you've got some resources for Christmas around the world. Oh, wait, before we do that, I have to just say one thing. It's funny, but like before we were talking, you were talking about you made cinnamon rolls, and this goes back to those breakfast recipes. And Christmas traditions may or may not be. I don't know if those are based on a place around the world, but Christmas traditions are good. She said they make 120 cinnamon rolls each year. And I'm like, I make like 24, whatever a recipe is. But then not just to make them, but to go and share them with these people within their lives, whether that's family or friends, neighbors, church members, or whatever. But I just wanted to bring that up because I just thought that was the coolest story. If there's some kind of Christmas around the world, tell us. If not, we're just going to say, yay, find a way to serve other people.
No, that didn't come from A Christmas Around the World. That we have done since I was old enough to remember being in the kitchen helping my mom make them. So that's more
Oh,
years than I want to admit. But it's no, that is just a good old family tradition. But we have done it every year without fail. Even one year, this one year we all got sick about a week and a half before or a week and a half before Thanksgiving, and my sister and I were like, "Well, what about the cinnamon rolls?" And my mom's like, "Well, guys, we could wait and make them later." We're like, "No, we have to make the cinnamon rolls. It's not Thanksgiving
oh,
if we don't make them." And then we always eat them on Thanksgiving morning for breakfast. But we're like, "No, no, no!" Even though everybody was sick, we're like, "No, we have to make the cinnamon rolls."
that
So,
sounds yummy. Oh, my grandkids love them, and my son-in-laws are like, Carrie, make some more cinnamon
yeah.
rolls. So anyway, so y'all need to find some traditions. So Christmas around the world, we're going to go back to that. I know you have some resources. Can you tell people a little bit about those resources and where people could connect with you?
Sure. So my website's right, Bonnie Rose, and if you go right now, of course, I have a big Christmas banner on this site to make it easy to find everything. I have basically two sets of resources. I have a whole page that has links to recipes, crafts, everything there, is free. You can explore. It will have resources for 40 different countries. Not all the countries. I don't have links up for quite all the countries yet, but I'm building that kind of day by day. There's over I think I have 22 countries live right now, but the rest are coming. And so it has links to all the recipes and crafts that we talked about, plus tons and tons more. And then I also have a set of resources that you can purchase if you're interested. There are coloring books, there are notebooks, there are creative writing projects for older kids. There's some drawing projects, and they explore 40 different countries. So there's Christmas in countries all over the world. All six inhabited continents are represented, and so there's just all different ways you can learn about it, from Egypt to Australia to New Zealand to Canada to Romania to China, all over the place. So,
That is amazing. Well, wherever y'all are listening to, just look for the show notes below. We'll have the links to Bonnie's website and specifically to the Christmas links that we've been talking about on the show. Before we close, Bonnie, is there anything that you would like to say in closing?
I think what really has struck me, and one of the things that I love the most celebrating at Christmas time each year, is just remembering that truly all over the world, no matter what language, no matter what customs, no matter what we cook, whether we're in a free country or a persecuted country, every single Christian in the world at some point over the Christmas season, because sometimes the days change depending on the faith tradition, that we're all celebrating the same thing, that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And that is the one truth that is bigger than anything and any custom and any tradition. And it just fills my heart every year to think about that.
That is awesome. And I'll just add a little PS. If you don't know Jesus as your Savior, this is the time to take it seriously. And the verse you just said, John 3:16, for God so loved you. If you've never thought about where your faith is or where you're going to live in the afterlife, because there is an afterlife, that you would really consider who Jesus is and what he actually did for you, that he didn't just come as a baby, but he died for your sins. And we all have sinned and we all have the penalty of death. And so I would just really encourage you, one, to read John 3:16 in the Bible. I may actually throw a few more verses in there just for you to consider because I would be doing you a disservice if we did not share that as well. So Bonnie, I appreciate you closing with John 3:16 and just what Jesus has done for each of us. So thank you, and
Too.
we will talk to y'all next time. This is Carrie back with Homeschool Coffee Break.